Hey, my name is Rip Pruitt. I'm a realtor in the metro Atlanta area. I'm married, got a couple of boys, age 6 and 12, who I love. I'm definitely a big family guy. I love spending time with my family. When I'm not doing that, I'm selling real estate, primarily residential real estate. I've done the occasional commercial deals, but I focus on residential. If I'm not selling residential real estate, then I'm somewhere outside, whether it's hiking up in the North Georgia mountains or paddling on the river or playing on the lake, which is pretty local to where I am. But yeah, that's my family loves adventures. We love traveling and I love selling real estate, man. Just being able to see people get excited with buying a home, because usually when they buy a home, they're starting a new chapter in their lives, starting a family. Same way with selling a home. When they sell a home, it's because there's some new chapter that's about to take place. So that's just a quick shot of who I am, local Georgia boy, grew up here. I got over 40 years in the state. So before real estate, I'd spent over 20 years in either the nonprofit or church world. So then it got to a point where one day my mother, who's kind of been a little bit in and out of our lives over the years, found herself in a tough scenario. And so we said, you know what, let's try and help her out. And so we established some boundaries and she came to live with us. Well, about a week into that, we get a letter from the IRS saying that she owed over $90,000 in back taxes. So we had to start taking care of that, figure that out, get that cleared up, start trying to figure out retirement for her, just starting figuring out all these different things that she needed to just live. And as we went through that, my wife and I started talking, and I just started sharing with her. I was like, here's the thing. I never want us to be a financial burden on our kids. In fact, if possible, I'd love to be a financial blessing to our kids. But unfortunately, I knew the path that I'd chosen of working in the nonprofit world and church world, I wasn't going to really be able to accomplish any sense of wealth. And I still wanted to be able to help people. I still wanted to be involved in the lives of people, because as weird as it sounds, I just love people. I love hearing people's stories, where they came from, where they're going. And the more me and my wife talked about it, we said, maybe real estate's a direction. And at the time I was working for a mega church, one of the biggest churches in the area, and went to them and said, hey, what if I start selling real estate part-time on the side? And we came to an understanding and started doing that. And really, I put out a parody rap video, ended up going viral. It won Century 21's International Best Marketing Video of the Year.
My name's Rip, I'm your realtor coming hard to the game. Fame's not my aim, but remember my name. Introductions to my crew, oh, it's nice to meet you too. Now meet my wife and son, Solomon and Jude. I'm famous like Philadelphia is into realty, like Kara Brady, realtor lady, bunch on TV.
And really just kick-started my career. And so I ended up, we were talking to my financial advisor one day. He said, hey, what would you ultimately love to do? And I said, well, I would love to be able to do real estate full time, and then any type of ministry or helping people side of things, just be able to do that for free. And eventually that came to be. About 6 months into doing it part-time, I just started doing well enough where I could do it full-time. And so now I'll host like some nonprofit banquets and events for free, or I'll write some things for some different nonprofits. But it's just cool because now instead of relying on them having to pay for that for me to make a living, I can do that for free. In fact, most of the time I can offer services for free, and at the end of that, even write them a check towards their organization. So that's been really cool. A big one for me is culture. I love experiencing different cultures. And I think oftentimes when we talk about culture, we think of American culture and then maybe a different country. The beauty of this country is, depending on what part of the country you're in, is a completely different culture. And they're all good. Obviously, I've lived here pretty much my whole life. I've been out to California a few times. I've been to several states a few times. I got to experience different cultures. One culture here, it's a little slower pace. Atlanta's a little bit faster than the rest of the state, but it's still a slower pace culture. The food, we take pride in our food. Too often we probably fry too many things, but it's great food. It's a very kind of warm culture. Everybody prides themselves, if you're from the South, on being polite and trying to help your neighbor. So yeah, I would say culture's a big one with our food, with our demeanor. Here in Georgia, we can be in the mountains one day. We could be on a lake doing water sports one day. We could be on the river, or we could be in the city. So there's just a variety of things that you can experience all pressed into one region. So that's another great reason that I love Georgia. I think the last statistic that I heard was Atlanta Hartsfield is one of the busiest airports in the nation. So, so it's a big hub for travel. So you also just get all kinds of, not to keep hammering on culture, but all kinds of international culture as well, which I think when people think of the South, they don't necessarily think of that. One of my sons is from Ethiopia, and so there's tons of Ethiopian restaurants and organizations that we've been able to connect to with him. Right down within 5 to 10 minutes of me, you've got your Southern flair food, while also you can go get Korean, Japanese, Ethiopian. And I think it's just because of Atlanta being such a big city, and I think it is the biggest city in the South. And then with the airport being so huge and being an international airport, we attract a lot of different folks from a lot of different places. So I would say one, I'd try and maybe get us tickets to a show at the Fox Theater. A lot of great bands come through there. And the cool thing about the Fox Theater is a lot of history in that place. Is downtown Atlanta. And so there's tons of events, from ballets to concerts to just all kinds of different things. And it's like the old school classic theater. You've got the balcony, you've got the regular seats. You look up and it looks like a night sky. They've done it where it looks like it's stars, but it's tons of details in the wood and the workmanship. And so it's a really cool place to catch a concert. So I would say there. Other than that, it'd be so tough to even get out of the city before you get into Suwanee, because there's so many things to do. Because there's as silly as it sounds, the world of Coca-Cola is really cool, because you can go in there and you can taste Coke products from all over the world, different ones that you've never heard of before. We've got one of the best now aquariums in the nation, which is a super cool thing to walk through. Centennial Park has a lot of outdoor concerts. Chastain has a lot of great outdoor concerts. We've got the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is one of the most cutting edge stadiums where Atlanta Falcons play, which we're having a rough season so far, but Atlanta United, there's a lot of folks, big, strong fan base for soccer here. We've got Truist Park, where the Braves just played for the World Series last night. That's a pretty new baseball park. So if we get out of Atlanta and we start heading up closer to where I live, which that's also the beauty of where I live, is it's complete suburbs, it's the suburb life. But within 30 minutes, we're in the heart of the city. But I would say one place, once we get up to Suwanee, I might take you out to the lake. Love the lake. Lake Lanier is a huge lake. A lot of history there. A lot of folks think it's haunted, because when they first made the lake, it was just the Army Corps of Engineers drained, or not drained, but filled the whole area. So still today, there's houses underneath there's cars, there's businesses, all that stuff. They didn't clear out any of it. They just filled it up. And so it's a huge attraction. People all over the Southeast will come to that lake and boat on it. Tons of houses, docks on it. There's restaurants on the lake you can go to. Jimmy Buffett just bought Lake Lanier Islands. So there's concerts there, there's beach bars, there's restaurants, a golf course. It's a whole development on the lake. So yeah, so I'd probably take you out there as well, just because there's so many things that you could do just on the lake. Oh, that's a good question. I think getting into real estate has really opened my eyes. I think a lot of careers, when you're in it, you become contained in a smaller world. I don't know if I would say your world view is smaller, But when you're working in a certain job with the same people, you're constantly getting the same experiences from those people, same opinions, same mindset. Whereas I started doing real estate, I work with people with all kinds of different beliefs, all kinds of different mindsets, all kinds of different cultural backgrounds. And so I think the fact that Atlanta, not geographically or population wise, but just diversity, opinions, mindsets is so much bigger than I initially realized. To know that we're all Atlanteans, but have such different opinions, have such different backgrounds, different hobbies, different mindsets has really been fascinating to me. Each client has a totally different story, has totally different goals, even likes. With selling real estate, you think, oh, these people are going to like this house because I like this house. But that's not what they like. They've got a totally different thing that they're looking for, totally different needs, totally different things that are important to them that may not be important to me, or things that aren't important to me is extremely important to them. So I think it just opened my eyes to, which almost sounds ironic that still in the same city, my eyes have been open to a bigger world. But I think that's probably been the coolest and most eye-opening experience of getting into real estate, is just all the different types of folks I've been able to work with and realize, and man, that's what Atlanta is. It's just tons of different kinds of folks, and that's what makes it unique, is that everybody is unique apart from each other as well. Oh, one thing I would change about the Atlanta area. Surface level stuff, maybe some of the pollen and the humidity. We're called Hot Atlanta for a reason. It's not only gets hot out here, it's a humid heat. From that perspective, maybe changing a couple things like that. Traffic around the city can be tough, even though keeping things in perspective is not as bad as some places. I remember the first time I visited New York and got out of the airport JFK and jumped into a cab, and the cab driver was like, where to? I told him my hotel, and he said, where are you from? I said, Atlanta. He said, oh, I love Atlanta. I just love small cities. And I thought, small city? And once I started going around Atlanta or New York, I realized in comparison it is. And the traffic was even crazier then. But from my experience, my point of view, my world, there's definitely times in Atlanta that I avoid. If I've got a meeting at a certain time, I'm not going to make that meeting around 8 a.m. in Atlanta, and I'm not going to make my last meeting around 4:30 in Atlanta, because I know those two times I'm just going to be sitting in traffic forever. So, I would love to change some of that. That's a good question, though. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of things that come to mind, but you got to keep in mind, too, I'm a Georgia boy. I love my home state. So. We do love the area because it is so diverse. My family is a blended family. I'm married to a white woman. I'm white, but then my youngest son is African American. He's 6, and my oldest son is 12, about to turn 13. He's African American, but he was born in Ethiopia. So for us, diversity is important. We want to be in a place where families and the people look as diverse as we do. And so that's one good thing about our area. My wife and I make a good team because I'm more oriented on sports and team sports and learning some of the values of being able to work together, of being able to work as a team, of being able to figure out how to help out one another. But I also have a background in music and art, and my wife is an artist. And so that's important to her. So with our kids, we always have a deal of, hey, you don't have to be in anything that we necessarily want you to be in, but you either need to be in some type of fine arts activity going on or some type of sports. We don't want our kids being idle. We want them to be productive and active in the community. And so our boys are either usually doing sports or they're doing some type of something in the art where they're taking music lessons like guitar lessons, or my wife is giving art lessons with them. And so because of that, we also love the area because one, in that community, there's tons of options for youth sports. Any sport you can think of, you can sign up for. In fact, any sport that you can think of, you can get specialized training in. Like there's tons of like youth athletic companies where you can go in and go, hey, my youth athlete is wanting to play wide receiver with football, so we can get wide receiver training. Or my youth athlete is wanting to learn how to pitch baseball, so you can get specialized baseball training. Or you can go, hey, my kids are wanting to do theater, and there's tons of local community theater that kids can get involved with. There's tons of music shops that we can get music lessons from. So that's a big one for us, is just that our kids can continually developing skills that help them in life with music and art. It just helps them to look into life in a deeper way, a more purposeful way. With sports, it teaches them how to work with others as they grow up and have to learn how to compromise and work with other people in harmony. And then there's just tons of things for my wife, who is now, after 18 years of teaching art, since I've gotten into real estate, is now a stay-at-home mom, and she's what I call my CPO, my Chief People Officer. So she does all my client care, all my database management, my CRM stuff, which she's great. A lot of times it'll be a family that has had a home for, like just recently, I sold a home for an elderly couple in their 70s. Right towards the end of the transaction, the wife passed away. And so my wife painted a picture of this home that they'd lived in for over 40 years and was able to give that to them when it closed. And it brought them to tears, because that's the other thing with homes is it's not just brick and mortar that people are buying. It's once they get in it, it's memories. It's where they brought their kid home for the first time. It's maybe where they carried their wife into the door for the first time. It's that memory with that grandmother or grandfather for the last time maybe. But it's all these memories and experiences that have been made in that home. So sometimes we feel silly because we sell this inanimate object, but we become emotionally upset about it. And people feel silly about it, but it's because it's all the memories and everything that it's tied to. And so my wife's able to do some paintings in scenarios like that. This just means a lot for people because they can look back on those paintings and remember all those experiences. I can think back to two girls that I dated in high school right off the bat. One is on Law & Order SVU. The other one is in that new HBO series. I think it's called Doom, one of the Marvel, series. I've got a couple of buddies who are professional athletes now, and I have a couple of buddies who have made it as professional musicians. It's not, if you're in this area, then you're probably going to be gravitating more towards this. There's just so many different opportunities, and that's what we want for our kids. Is we want to set them up for success, but then for them to define themselves and find their own identity. And I'm happy if my boys are athletes, and I'm just as happy if my boys are musicians or artists. Either one has got great supporting pieces around. I would say the only other thing that I do love about real estate, and this is probably my nonprofit and church background coming out, is first going into it, I looked at it as this is a great way to try and build wealth for my family, for my boys in the future, to hopefully achieve what we would call financial freedom. And everybody has their own definition of what financial freedom would be. But it really is, it really is helping people, because there's so many clients, and I can name client after client. I mentioned the elderly couple. There was another couple that I've done probably 3 deals for now, and she lost her husband after we closed on their last home. He got to spend one night in the home before he passed away. But walking through that with her and helping her think through her finances, her future. I've helped several people who are getting divorced And whether that's something that needs to happen or not, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. But even when people would say, oh no, it's a good thing for us to get divorced, there's still a lot of pain involved in it. There's never hardly a pain-free divorce. And so walking through with people in pain through that and helping them think through, just help a client, her father passed away and they're trying to clean out his house. They built it, her father and mother, and I think the early 70s. So they've been there forever and trying to figure out, how do we handle this? We've got a house full of stuff. We need to sell his home. And at the same time, we're in mourning because we're just crushed that we lost our father after losing our mother years ago. So being able to walk through that experience. So there's always a story. It's never about just helping somebody buy a house or sell a house. They say that moving, selling a home or buying a home is in the top 5 most stressful things you can go through, that oftentimes it even goes up there with even the death of a spouse. And so there's always a story when it comes to clients. And so you're not just trying to figure out the deal, which you have to get creative, especially in this market. It's a volatile, crazy market. You can't just make a normal offer anymore or just sell a house in a normal way, because it is such a crazy market. You got to get creative. But it's also trying to figure out what's the best thing for this family. What's their best scenario, and how do we go about this deal and it still be beneficial, and try and take off some of that stress that they're feeling. Even today, got a family flying in from Delaware. They're being relocated and they're starting to freak out and get stressed out because their house is sold in Delaware and they've got to find a place. And so trying to be that calming voice in the middle of a storm for them and help them find the best house, not only just quickly, but one that works out with all their needs for their kids as well. I enjoy kind of those challenges and just those times of being able to walk through some of those stressful or even painful scenarios with these families. And it brings a lot of joy at the end when they're like, man, you made this so much easier than we thought it was going to be, or we're so thankful that this worked out this way. And that's when it's nice to get commission checks, obviously, but it's even better when you get responses like that from your clients. So it's our second annual downtown Duluth donut eating competition. There's Duluth is a city that's old, dating back to 1800s, has railroad tracks still going through the community. And so it's just a cool downtown area. And there's some folks that I've met through the years. Unfortunately, donuts is one of my favorite food groups. And so I built a relationship with them. And so this is our second annual downtown Duluth donut eating competition, where we'll have tons of folks come out just to watch. We'll probably have 10 to 15 competitors. I give away some cash prizes and some swag, some Rip the Realtor t-shirts and mugs and things like that. And we just have a great time doing that. I'm glad you said community, because that is a big thing for me. I've got one in the spring, Home Brewers Brew Off, where I partner with a local brewery. And so all these home brewers get to compete for who's brewing the best beer. And the winner gets to brew their recipe and like the big commercial one, and then the brewery will serve their beer on the menu until they run out. But we'll have some bands playing, some food trucks. But yeah, I think community is the key. I feel like we're intended and created to have community with one another. It's when you hear people struggling and having a hard time in life, it's a lot of time because of loneliness and they feel alone. Whereas when they're plugged into a community of people that they feel like love and support them, people begin to thrive. And yeah, I think community is key to a lot of it.